I talked to many other guests that were diagnosed and had a grieving process, or at least a downward spiral. Did you ever have a dark moment in your life dealing with your diagnosis, or were you just work, work, work?
I think I'm still grieving, actually. It's been 8.5 years, but the grieving process never stopped. And I am thankful to the foundation because it gave me an outlet and a channel to be distracted from what was going on while also helping myself and other patients. And I know other people have it way worse, whether it's with this disease or other diseases. But for me at that time, it was the worst thing that I had ever gone through. And I wasn't sure if I was going to survive it. In fact, the internet told me I wasn't going to survive it. When you love what you do and you feel so passionate about what you do, it really doesn't feel like work. So it's a pleasure for me to do this. It's an honor for me to do this. And I do, without sounding all hocus pocus, I really do think that there was a reason that I got diagnosed with this. There was a reason that all of this happened, and maybe it was.
So what is harder, starting a foundation or when you have to keep innovating now, 8 years later?
We're almost 9 years old. We're at a very different phase of our evolution than we were at the 5 year mark, at the 2 year mark, at the 1 year mark. So every year I keep learning more and more things. And as we get older and become a more mature global organization, I personally feel very enriched by all of the learnings that come with that. And it's really fascinating.
I find a lot of companies start grassroots style, then kind of turn into corporate because sponsors bring in money and you definitely need money to keep doing what you are doing. How do you toe the line of doing it for the people versus doing it for sponsors?
It sounds like a joke, but I really feel this way. Sometimes I forget that I am Sumaira of the Sumaira Foundation. To me, I'm like, okay, I got 100 things I got to get done today. I have 3 interviews, 2 meetings, a bunch of stuff that's due tomorrow. Like, I'm just so in the thick of it that I don't have that time to really appreciate what other people see. Say I had minor flares. I had pretty major flares. And over the years, it's been a broad spectrum of symptoms, severe vision loss, paresthesias on the left side of my body. My nerve pain is pretty debilitating, incontinence. But yes, I am able to function just fine. I've gotten most of my vision back. I have about a 40% permanent vision loss in my right eye. I think when you go through such horrible spells and hospital visits, infusions, and this and that, you really learn to appreciate the good days. And so I feel very fortunate that I can even appreciate the good days, that I'm here to appreciate the good days.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Two Mics, One Joe Stooch. I am Joe Stooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Samara. 2014 was a really big year. In June, Samara was diagnosed with sero-negative neuromyelitis, optica spectrum disorder, or called NMOSD, and chronic relapsing inflammatory optic neuritis, CRION, or CRION, after experiencing sudden and severe vision loss and weakness and numbness. If that wasn't hard enough, just 2 months later, she started her own nonprofit called the Sumaira Foundation to generate global awareness of NMOSD and MOGAD, supporting research to find a cure, patient advocacy, and creating communities of support. Do you believe we are always destined to be great despite our huge health obstacles in life without high motivation and drive?
Oh, that's a big question. I mean, I think I'd like to believe that. I think that's kind of what, the ethos I try to live by, but I think ultimately it boils down to the individual person. I will say that I didn't realize how much strength I had until I needed to use it in this situation. So, it was a little bit of self-discovery when all of this happened. I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of think we always have I don't believe in religion or anything like that, but I feel like if we have like the high motivation drive, we're always destined to do almost the same results regardless of our situations. I believe that in all of us. Like if somebody's gonna be great, and then they get like hit by a car, they'll still be great afterwards maybe in a different life, but they'll always be that greatness, something in them that go like, oh, we're gonna be just great people, regardless of what happens.
I'd like to believe that. I think most humans start out pretty great, and things happen over time that make them not great. I think when we're born as babies, most of us are pretty well-intentioned, pure people who want the best in the world, and then life happens. But I agree with the sentiment that these sort of obstacles that happen in our lives, in this context, health, shouldn't stop us from being or aspiring to be great.
You say we're all born great, but I don't think so. I think we're born as just regular people, and we just gotta deal with whatever you have. So, like, you started the Sumaira Foundation, and let's just talk how much of a badass Sumaira is. Are you ready?
I don't know if I'm a badass, but I'll take it.
Okay, so we have 3 weeks of bed rest, 18 pills a day, some chemotherapy, and very little support from the internet since there was none with her disease. This led to Sumaira creating the Sumaira Foundation to raise money for research and gather people with the same illness, so they have the most up-to-date information and also the support of the community that she didn't have and wish she had. 8 years later, the Sumaira Foundation had gone global, expanding into Canada and Europe and translating its digital content into 10 languages. You started a foundation extremely quickly. I talked to many other guests that were diagnosed and had a grieving process, or at least a downward spiral. Did you ever have a dark moment in your life dealing with your diagnosis, or were you just work, work, work?
You know, I avoid actively thinking about my beginning days because it was so dark, literally and figuratively. But, in thinking back, I think I think I'm still grieving, actually. It's been 8.5 years, but the grieving process never stopped. And I am thankful to the foundation because it gave me an outlet and a channel to be distracted from what was going on while also helping myself and other patients. The first 18 months in particular were very difficult. As you said in your introduction, I lost my vision. I had trouble with mobility. I was receiving chemotherapy. I was sero-negative. So, the quest for a diagnosis never stopped. I was being poked and prodded every day, basically, for like 18 months, trying all kinds of new medications. I went through menopause, and it was a nightmare. Actually, I had just turned 25, and that's what my 25th year had started like. And I know other people have it way worse, whether it's with this disease or other diseases, but for me at that time it was the worst thing that I had ever gone through, and I wasn't sure if I was going to survive it. In fact, the internet told me I wasn't going to survive it. But I really do think that having the Sumaira Foundation and starting that and building that and having this thing that I could put my energy towards and my mind towards and my heart towards really helped me stay focused on the big picture, and it kept me fighting and it kept me motivated, and I'm super grateful for that.
I mean, it's pretty insane that you were just talking about you fighting for your life for like 18 months, and they just like, hey, let's just start a foundation. Like, my life isn't that hard enough. Let's just create a foundation, and just me doing my brand is something you have to like continue to work with. Like, you can't like take a 6 month break because you lose,
Yeah.
the momentum. Like, how did you manage? Were you like 6 months down the line, you were like, oh shit, maybe this is too much for me, and I have to like slow down and work on
No.
myself?
No, but you're absolutely right that it's like you can't just stop it, right? And once I realized like this thing has legs, there's a need for it, people are responding to it, people want it, it gave me ammunition to keep going. And I can say with full conviction, over the last 8.5 years of leading and growing this effort, I haven't really had a day off. I've never stopped working on it. Even on vacation, I'm working on it. Even on vacation, I'm meeting with patients and doctors. The work really never stops. But the thing is that when you love what you do and you feel so passionate about what you do, it really doesn't feel like work. So it's a pleasure for me to do this. It's an honor for me to do this. And I do, without sounding all hocus pocus, I really do think that there was a reason that I got diagnosed with this. There was a reason that all of this happened. And maybe it was to, light the way forward for these patients and caregivers around the world who didn't have the luxuries that I had when I first got diagnosed.
Were you meeting, like, especially in the beginning, I'm sure it was probably a very thrilling experience, like you're meeting people and stuff. Like, I always get that feeling when I meet new guests and stuff. So did you have, like, this, you were almost addicted to keep meeting people because it kept you pumped, and then there might be, like, a month where you don't meet anyone and you kind of feel like, off a little bit, so you have to keep going to keep that high. Do you experience the same thing?
Not really, because I think from, the launch until now, I'm constantly meeting people, whether it's online or in person, and it just keeps increasing and increasing and increasing, which is cool. And now that we're global, I get to meet patients, caregivers, doctors, advocacy folks, policymakers all around the world, industry partners. So the number of people I get to meet from all these different stakeholder groups from around the world continues to increase on a daily basis. So if that was taken away, of course, I think I would feel it. But again, it's like I get so much energy out of meeting these people because it's amazing how much we learn from others just by listening.
Do you like the more personal side of it, or do you like the more the business side of it?
Both. I'm definitely a businesswoman. There's no question about that. Before I started the nonprofit, I worked in business. So I think that's just kind of how I think about things. And if I were to ever start a company now, whether it's for profit or a nonprofit organization, I would go into it with a very business minded approach, as one should. I was actually just saying this yesterday, regardless of if you are working in a nonprofit or for profit, the ultimate goal is to make money, right? It's just how do you allocate those funds? That's the difference between the two.
Yeah.
So for me, it's intrinsically rewarding. It helps me as a patient to do this work. But on the more on the nerdier side of things, I've enjoyed growing an organization, learning on the job, globalizing, expanding our divisions and efforts and programming. So I get a nice fix on the personal and professional side
Do you ever get, like, advice from people that have, like, no idea
all the
what
time.
they're doing?
All the time. All the time.
I know you had an article about women being women trailblazer. Do you feel like a woman has affected your, I guess, creating your foundation, or do you think it helped you more? And I think I see it like from two sides. The one, it could be like you're a woman, so like people will just knock you down just because you're a woman, but at the same time, it could work in your favor because more people are willing to talk to a woman just to like, especially in a vulnerable position. Like, do you feel like it helped you more or less being a
Um,
woman?
I never really thought about it like that, but I do think that, so statistically speaking, the percentage of women who work in nonprofits are much higher than men. And I think that
Oh, really?
comes,
Huh.
yeah. And I think, and advocacy as well. And I see that in our community, and I also see the numbers. So, and I think there's a reason for that. Obviously, men and women are very different. We operate very differently. We approach things very differently. But I'd like to
Yeah.
think, at least for speaking for myself as a woman, like I lead with kindness. I have a lot of empathy and compassion. And I think that those inherent qualities helped me to really connect with this community and engage with them in a meaningful way, which is reflective of where we are now. So I think it helped me that that I'm a woman. Like I'm more sensitive. I'm a good listener. I'm curious about people's lives. I'm inquisitive. But as I said earlier, I think the empathy and the kindness and the compassion is really important in this type of work.
So should I get out of here?
No, you're great. You're great. And not it's not all women or all men. There are men who
Yeah.
are like this as well. There are women who are not like this.
No, I mean, I totally get it. It's just very. I just think, well, for one, I think we as a society care more about women's problems because men don't. I think like that's a big thing. Like I've been interviewing for a year now, and I would say like 80% of my guests are women, just because they're more vocal, and I think they get more support where men could just tell their problems and it wouldn't. Like maybe the first post would be a lot of attention, but the second and third they just don't care anymore. I see it just as a guy, and I totally get it. But I think it's just I don't know. I just feel like I'm gotta push myself forward and have my own mindset to be in this medium, because I do know it's dominated by women across the board, and it's like when they see a guy like advocating, they like hold on to me, like keep doing what you're doing, because
Oh,
it's
and
so
I
hard to
think the
just.
male perspective, the male involvement is very important. So I agree. You should keep doing what you're doing. And if I were to give unsolicited advice, which you don't need because you're doing it anyway through your podcast, communication is key. I think, men and women, we communicate very differently, but I think if you can find a way to communicate and really connect with people, whether it's a male way of doing things or a female way of doing things, ultimately it's that connection that matters. So you're doing this through your podcast, which is incredible.
Yeah. The only thing that's kind of unfortunate is that we kind of live in like a, I guess, dating kind of lifestyle where like if I did talk to a woman, like woman, when a guy slides into a woman's DMs, the first thing is like, oh, he must think I'm attractive and like he wants to do something. And I'm like that's why I always come out like, hey, I have a podcast, like want to interview you, like
Yeah,
have a career going. I'm not just here to like slide
yeah,
into your DMs for your number, you know. So I
right.
think that's like one of the obstacles, I guess. So I always have to be upfront with what I want and to do. And then sometimes, I mean, I also see it like like I follow people that I want to interview in the future, and like sometimes they're going through rough times, and you know that when you're in a chronic ill community, that's like normal.
Yeah,
But like when I reach out to like to poor, I the last thing I want them to think is like, oh, I'm trying to like get their number, and so I think that's a little hard. Like I know I'm a great guy. I don't my intention or not devious anything. I just want to be supportive, but I do understand from women's perspective, like they're not gonna want to listen to a guy because they had most guys are probably trying to get something, So,
sure.
which which is unfortunate, but that just comes along with I guess this medium here, and I'll just roll with the punches. I don't blame society for the way they react to things. So let's talk about you again. So what is harder, starting a foundation or when you have to keep innovating now 8 years later?
Starting a foundation. By,
Really?
yeah. I was starting a foundation from nothing, not ever having worked in nonprofits, not, also while going through a diagnosis journey myself at 25. So I think, and not really having that much guidance. I kind of figured a lot out on my own. I did have a lot of people around me who were helping me as much as they could, but really, the this foundation taking off and becoming what it has fortunately become was very much contingent on me and what was I able to do with it and make of it. So I don't regret it whatsoever. I think it was the best decision that I ever made. I made it pretty impulsively, I'll admit, but
Hmm.
it ended up being a lot more challenging and a lot more work than I had originally anticipated, and that's okay. I think that all of those things helped me grow into the leader that I've become and, set me up for success actually. And I think I always say this, starting a foundation is one thing, maintaining and growing a foundation is another thing. We're almost 9 years old. We're at a very different phase of our evolution than we were at the 5 year mark, at the 2 year mark, at the 1 year mark. So every year I keep learning more and more things, and as we get older and become a more mature global organization, I personally feel very enriched by all of the learnings that come with that, and it's really fascinating.
It's weird that you say that, because I feel like the longer you are, the harder it is, because you have to keep innovating and being new and like try to attract a new audience. I think that's one of the hardest parts of any medium, is just trying to get a new crowd, new people, more people interested, money involved. It's so hard to do. Like,
Definitely.
like you must feel that sometimes people just don't care anymore, although they care for like a month or so, and then they just drop off for just because we're surrounded by so much that like it's almost impossible to care about everything.
Yeah. I never felt that, thankfully, because it may have discouraged me from continuing on this path. I will say that most of our work has to do with the community, so patients, caregivers, clinicians, folks in industry, and all the different people that are involved in our world. And all these people are involved in our world, so they don't stop caring. The more peripheral audiences, the donors and the fundraiser attendees and whatever, they may care just for the events and then forget about it until the next event, and that's okay. For me, as long as our patients and caregivers primarily are taken care of and they're engaged and they're informed and empowered, that's really what I care about.
Yeah, so we have like two totally different brands where mine is more giant, mine is more drawing a line in the sand and edgier and raunchier in appropriate situation. Samara's is very welcoming and comforting. It's like jumping in a fuzzy cocoon. It is a very Samara style and always maintained to be authentic all the way through. Was there anywhere in your career where you had to stop yourself from doing something because a sponsor may not like it or
No,
approve of it?
no, I haven't run into that yet. Yet. I've not run into that yet.
Oh, okay.
And that could
Yeah.
be that
I
that I don't know if that's a testament to me. I think it could be because I have a lot of great advisors around me. So people who I have some guardrails, there are times when I bring things to our team and I'm like, "Hey, we should do this, and they're like, "All right, we got to reel it in." So, but I've never had that experience with, someone outside of our team. But you never know, things may happen.
I think it's just your style. Yours is very, I guess, attractive to sponsorship. For mine, it's more like, he's funny, but like we can't like promote this stuff. Like, I like it's just your style, and it's kind of my style, and I can't. If you hired me for your job, I would not be happy with it because I understand what you like, but like it doesn't fit what I like, and it would be like I'm conflicting thing. It would be like I'm in a cage, and I couldn't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And
it's
that's why you're doing what you do and I do what I do.
I find a lot of companies start grassroots style, then kind of turn into corporate because sponsors bring in money, and you definitely need money to keep doing what you are doing. How do you toe the line of doing it for the people versus doing it for sponsors?
Well, I think there's a very simple explanation for that. When you have a rare disease, you take whatever you can to serve your communities. So we work very copacetically with industry, A, because they're making our therapies, but you're correct in that they do have sponsorships. And if we can get sponsorships from them to serve our communities, then I see no problem with that.
Did you ever have a moment in your career where like, I'm sure you started that you'd never imagined that you'd be doing it 9 years now. Did you ever have a moment where, like, it was like, oh shit, I have something great here and, like, something I can actually, like, make it larger than life?
I get asked this a lot, and the honest answer is that I'm so focused on getting shit done, and there's a lot of shit to get done that I don't think I really have the time to sit back and see what other people see. And I do believe I have a bit of a blind spot when it comes to that. It sounds like a joke, but I really feel this way. Sometimes I forget that I am Sumaira of the Sumaira Foundation. To me, I'm like, okay, I got 100 things I got to get done today. I have 3 interviews, 2 meetings, a bunch of stuff that's due tomorrow. Like I'm just so in the thick of it that I don't have that time to really appreciate what other people see. And I think it's a blessing and a curse. A blessing in the sense that it keeps me driven, keeps me motivated. I'm very ambitious anyway, but like this drive and this appetite to do more and to do better and to grow, I'm not sure that it would be as amplified as it is if I was aware of or cognizant of what other people see. I think it's a curse because it sounds so lovely and people tell me nice things all the time and I just simply cannot see it. I wish I could see it. Sometimes, and it's an ongoing process, but in my personal life and as me as the foundation's leader. But I think I do need to be nicer to myself and really take a moment to appreciate what I've done and be proud of myself. And it's something that I struggle with, but it's something that I'm hoping to learn how to do as I get older and as I continue to do this work.
Well, I hope this episode helped you out to put your career into perspective. No? Okay.
It's not you, it's me. It's a not you problem, it's me.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, you created something from nothing, and you kind of guess you could say you're lucky, but you also put in the words that you found a niche audience that didn't have a voice and everything, and you filling that voice, and you came up at a perfect time to be here because no one could start one today because we have the Sumaira Foundation that's gonna already established, so there's no need to have another one. So you're
Exactly.
doing great work.
Oh, thank you, Joe. That's so nice. It is nice to hear. I can hear it, but I can't hear it, you know?
Yeah, I totally get it. Like I don't know how well you like take compliments at all. Are you a compliment? Can you take compliments well?
Probably not. Probably not.
Okay. Yeah, my love language is being roasted. I can't take compliments, but I can be roasted and I'll just get like happy from it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm just a weird person.
Oh, I don't think you're
Like,
weird. You're just unique and different in your own way.
yeah. So like you say that. I mean, I'm sure running a foundation is a lot of work, and you were talking about all these meetings and stuff, and it took a while just for me to interview you.
Is that
And so,
right?
yeah, so are you saying that you're maybe one of the luckier ones with your diagnosis, so that you're able to do more work than the average person?
Well, I'm very, very, very lucky in the sense that I was diagnosed early. So I was diagnosed within 6 weeks of my symptoms, which for a rare disease is very good. It's the dream almost, if not diagnosed right away. So I think early detection, early diagnosis, the fact that I live in Boston, I was working in the healthcare system here, so I was very well connected, and I received treatment right away. So my clinical team was amazing. And I think I had youth on my side too. And again, that drive. So I am very lucky. I know that there are so many patients in our community who have had to abandon their careers, their educational careers, that their families have fallen apart because of illness, and like those are things I never had to go through, but I understand that they happen, and it's so sad to me. So I feel very, very lucky, and I use that awareness of how lucky I am and pour it into some of what we do in the foundation, knowing that there are people, most people are not so fortunate. So, what can we do as an organization to help early detection and early diagnosis, to help patients get access to therapies almost right away so that they're not left untreated, to make sure that patients are well supported in a community environment, to advocate for patients in conversations where it matters, where it impacts them? So, yeah. Hope it answered your question.
Yeah, so since you're the expert, so like in your case, you had a very minor flares throughout the year. So like, what are the symptoms that affect you?
Oh, I wouldn't say I had minor flares. I had pretty major, major flares. And over the years, it's been a broad spectrum of symptoms, severe vision loss. I have paresthesias on the left side of my body. My nerve pain is pretty debilitating, incontinence. But yes, I am able to function just fine. I've gotten most of my vision back. I have about a 40% permanent vision loss in my right eye. I'm managing, the incontinence with Botox in the bladder. Not pleasant, but it is, it's a good solution for now. And my paresthesias are managed by other meds too. So I've been in remission for 4 years, which is fantastic. I never thought I'd get there, but I'm here. And I think when you go through such horrible, horrible spells and hospital visits, infusions, and this and that, you really, really, really learn to appreciate the good days. And so I feel very fortunate that I can even appreciate the good days, that I'm here to appreciate the good days.
Yeah, so like, what do you do to help you get out of your flares? Because I have here that there are three FDA therapies approved. So do they work, or is it kind of a base by base basis?
So we have to separate the two types of treatments. So there's the acute treatments when you're having a flare up. In our situation, you would get IV steroids, plasmapheresis, or plasmapheresis, sometimes both. I've had both at the same time. And then you're put on a preventative therapy. So for many, many, many years, NMO patients and MOGAD patients were using off label therapies for this preventative treatment. As of 2020, NMO now has three FDA approved therapy, all with very high efficacy rates. So let's assume it's 2023, you have symptoms, you get diagnosed early, you get put on a preventative therapy, you have a great doctor, and you have great support. It's likely that you'll be able to live a very good life. We now have the tools that set us up for success, at least for the newly diagnosed patients.
So well, now that you're raising money and you're raising for a cure, it doesn't seem a cure is as important now since you mentioned that the therapy does a really good job of, I guess, curbing most of the symptoms and living a great life.
Yeah, I mean, I was just at a conference and one of the most prominent key opinion leaders in our space said that one of the therapies that are available for NMO are so efficacious that it's like the closest thing we can get to a cure. And I actually agree with that. It's like if a drug is, let's say, I'm just going to make a number up, 95% efficacious, it's pretty close to a cure. If that can give you a
Yeah.
normal life, that's incredible. So I think now the community is more focused on understanding the why and diagnostics and how do we find those patients who have not been diagnosed yet. Something we haven't talked about on your show yet is that 35% of our patients are misdiagnosed with MS. That is a huge, huge, huge problem because the MS therapies can actually exacerbate NMO and MOGAD symptoms, putting the patient in far worse situation than they started in. So how do we reduce the misdiagnosis rate? How do we get patients access to these now available therapies, not just in the US, but all over the world? How do we get the correct diagnostics to, let's say, the underserved parts of the world? So there's so much to do. And I think, to your point, we're a little less focused as a community on finding a cure because we have these therapies that are incredibly effective.
So does the treatment stop the progression of it, or does it stop but then kind of regress the condition though? So like I don't know. Let's say you tell you one of the symptoms is like you lose your vision. So let's say you lose 50%, then you go on a therapy. So do you stop at 50%, or do you go back to like now you only have like 20% of vision loss?
Yeah, so I'm not a doctor and science was not my best subject, so I can only speak for myself. But in theory, the acute treatments, those acute interventions, they help to regain what you have lost if it's regainable. And then the
Oh,
preventative therapies prevent your situation from getting worse. So, when I have to go get IV steroids, which I hate very much, I'm able to recover a lot of my vision loss because this disease or these diseases are very steroid respondent.
well, that's really great though. Uh,
It is,
so it's
right?
not
It's just good to have options.
yeah, like you don't really hear that a lot, and I guess in the rare disease space where you get better, it's more of like this your new normal. So that's awesome to hear that you're able
Totally.
to almost regain your life back. Or I take the mic away from you. Is there anything you want to say? Promote any words of wisdom? The mic is all yours.
Well, Joe, thanks for having me on your show. I'm very happy to be one of your guests. It's a pleasure and an honor. I commend you for all the work that you're doing, and it's a really cool
Yeah,
concept.
it is your time. You got to talk about yourself, bro.
But no, I mean, no, thanks for the time. Thanks for the platform. Thanks for the opportunity. Anyone who wants to find out more about NMOSD or MOGAD or what the Sumaira Foundation does, how you can get involved, and whatever, you can visit our website. It's www.sumairafoundation.org. My name is spelled Sumaira. There you go.
All right, thank you, Samara, so much for giving me your time and expertise. Thank you everyone for listening and watching, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.
Bye.